Welcome to the Theology Made podcast. I'm Jordan. In today's episode, we're going to look at how forgery built the church's power, but got exposed by a librarian. Chapter 1. The most important document you've never heard of. Imagine a document so powerful, it could give one man authority over kings. A single piece of parchment that claimed divine right, historical precedent, and legal power handed down from the first Christian emperor himself. Now imagine that document was fake. Not just a little off or slightly embellished, but entirely forged, a fraud, and no one figured it out for nearly 700 years. This is the story of the donation of Constantine, a forgery that propped up the Roman Catholic Church's power for centuries, and the quiet librarian took it down with a pen. Not a sword, not a rebellion, a pen. Chapter 2. The forgery that built an empire. Sometime around the 8th century, a strange document began circulating in the West. It was said to be written by Constantine the Great, the Roman emperor who legalized Christianity in the 4th century. According to the text, Constantine was miraculously healed of leprosy by Pope Sylvester I, baptized by him and so moved by the experience that he granted the Pope and his successors spiritual and temporal authority over Rome and the entire Western Roman Empire. It was in essence the Church's title deed to political power. The donation of Constantine quickly became one of the most cited documents in papal claims of authority. It was used to justify the Pope's power over kings and emperors. Popes waved it like a divine permission slip, especially during the heated medieval battles between church and state. Never mind that Constantine had been baptized in the East by a bishop who wasn't the Pope, or that there was no reference to the donation for centuries after Constantine's death. But no one questioned it. In a world where literacy was rare and power controlled the parchment, it was easy to accept the myth than risk excommunication. Chapter 3. The psychology of power and belief. To understand how the church got away with this, you have to understand something fundamental about human nature. We believe what benefits us to believe. If you're a medieval pope, a forged document that grants you divine authority, it's not a liability, it's an asset. If you're a monarch trying to stay in good standing with the church, you don't ask too many questions. And if you're a layperson, you're too busy trying not to die from the plague to wonder who baptized Constantine. This is what psychologists call motivated reasoning. We tend to accept ideas that serve our interests or confirm what we already believe. It's like defending a bad investment because you've already put too much money into it. We end up holding on too long because we don't want to believe we lost a ton of money on an investment that won't pan out. In this case, belief in the donation reinforced a comfortable status quo, and the status quo was very profitable for the church. Chapter 4. Enter the nerd with a knife. Now fast forward to the 15th century. Europe? Well, it's changing. The Renaissance is awakening curiosity, critical thinking, and a deep reverence for the original sources. Did you hear that? The original sources. Humanists are popping up across Italy, people obsessed with ancient texts, clean Latin, and historical precision. And one of them is Lorenzo Valla. He's a linguist, a scholar, and a bit of a rebel. He's not a priest, he's not a noble. He liked arguing, didn't mind being disliked, and he had the kind of mind that saw cracks where others just saw marble. And Valla had something that turned out to be dangerous. An eye for detail. While working in the Vatican archives as a papal secretary, yes, there's some irony there, he stumbles upon the donation of Constantine, and something doesn't sit right. The Latin, it's all wrong. The style, sloppy, full of terms that weren't used in Constantine's time. Words like satrap and feudum that didn't exist in the 4th century. It would be like reading a letter from George Washington where George Washington wrote, "Bro, the vibes were off." For Valla, the vibes were off for the donation of Constantine. Valla did what no one had dared to do. He treated the document like a puzzle and pulled it apart piece by piece. His method wasn't brute force, it was forensic. His 1440 treatise, Discovery on the Forgery of the Alleged Donation of Constantine, wasn't just a bold claim. It was a masterclass in what we now call textual criticism. He didn't need to shout, he just asked, why does this document use church terminology that didn't exist until the 8th century? Why is the grammar more medieval than Roman? And why does it describe a government structure that didn't emerge until centuries after Constantine? And so, like a skilled detective at a crime scene, Valla didn't need a smoking gun. He just needed the timeline not to add up. Chapter 5. The Church's Reaction. Awkward silence. Now, you might expect the church to respond with swift condemnation. Burn Valla at the stake, declare him a heretic, crush the rebellion. That's not what happened. The Vatican ignored him. They knew they couldn't argue with the evidence, and if they acknowledged the forgery, they'd be admitting that centuries of papal power rested on a lie. So they did what many powerful institutions do when they get caught red-handed. They pretended it didn't happen. And for over a century, the church maintained public silence about the donation, even as more and more scholars realized Valla was right. Chapter 6. How a Whisper Became a Reformation. Martin Luther loved Valla. When the Protestant Reformation began to ignite in the 16th century, Luther pointed directly to his work as proof that the Catholic Church had fabricated authority. If they forged this document, what else might have they manipulated? The donation of Constantine, it became a symbol, not just of church corruption, but of how fragile power can be when built on fiction. It wasn't just about theology anymore, it was about credibility. And Valla's insights didn't immediately dismantle the papacy, but it put a crack in the dam. Chapter 7. The power of asking the right question. For Valla, everything turned on one simple idea. Who actually wrote this? That question, obvious now, had gone unasked for centuries. No one had doubted the donation because everyone was too scared or too complicit to question it. And this is where the story gets bigger than church history. This isn't just about a forged document. It's about how power protects itself, how truth whispers when lies shout, and how sometimes all it takes is a quiet librarian to bring down an empire's scaffolding. And if you think this is just a medieval oddity, think again. We live in an era of viral misinformation, deepfakes, AI-generated content, and reimagined histories. Institutions are still tempted to fudge the facts. People still accept fictions that give them comfort or power. Just ask Dr. Mark Tessier-Levine. Until recently, he was the president of Stanford University. But then questions arose about manipulation in his data in his published research. Or consider Dr. Francesca Gino, a Harvard Business School professor once renowned for her research on honesty and ethics. Until multiple studies she co-authored were flagged for data fraud. She was placed on leave and then fired, the first time a tenured professor at Harvard had been fired in many years. In both cases, the institutions hesitated, though. They deflected and only acted when public scrutiny became too loud to ignore. The donation of Constantine reminds us that truth isn't just a moral issue, it's a structural one. And what you believe shapes what you build. If the foundation is fake, the whole house eventually cracks. Chapter 9. The takeaway and the tension. Here's the strained tension at the heart of this story. The church did incredible good across the centuries, built hospitals, preserved knowledge, and nurtured the poor. And yet, it also leaned on a lie to sustain its control. That doesn't mean Christianity is false. It means that institutions are fragile, even when the truths they guard are eternal. And it's possible to steward something holy while still making a mess of it. Valla understood that. He didn't renounce the church. He just wanted to be honest. And that's the paradox of reform. It's not destruction, it's purification. Lorenzo Valla died largely uncelebrated. His work wouldn't be widely accepted until long after his death, but that's often the fate of true tellers. They don't always see the collapse, but they plant the seeds. And today, the donation of Constantine is widely recognized as one of the most influential forgeries in Western history. And Valla? He's known as the father of historical criticism, just a librarian with a Latin dictionary who asked a dangerous question. And maybe that's the real legacy. Truth doesn't need a sword. Sometimes it just needs someone brave enough to read carefully.